I've recently been reading these two excellent books on the Ferox Trout. Talking to my friend Douglas, I discovered he too shared an interest to catch and return one of these elusive fish. This is our journey, starting here on Loch Awe in Scotland, to see if we can target them and learn a few things about this wonderful fish. I hope you enjoy the journey with us. The weather to begin with wasn't really good for our first day, as you'll see as the videos progress. Hiya, welcome back to another Angle UK, and I'm here with my good friend Douglas.
Hi everyone, good to be back.
We certainly picked the weather, don't we?
Yeah, a bit glowy today, as you probably see from the camera, a bit up and down. We're doing something really different.
Yeah, so we're out on Loch Awe and we've decided that we want to try and catch Ferox trout. Obviously neither of us have done that before, but we've decided we're going to give it a go.
Yeah.
So we've already spent, how long have we been out? About 3 hours?
Yeah, about 3 hours I would say. Trawling up and down.
So evidently this is what you have to do when you trawl it, the Ferox. Yeah.
It's something I've never done, before. Trawled in this way, especially on a boat. I've done it for a little bit on the kayak, but this is completely different. Yeah, we've been told that you're just perseverance, dedication, and just keep going and keep doing what you're doing. And I suppose Phil will go over what we're actually doing in terms of decks, rods. Yeah.
So today we're out on my boat, which is called Real Time, and it's Orkney Coastliner 14, and it's just the kind of boat for this sort of loch. It's nice and seaworthy, which is just as well. At the back there we've got the Tohatsu 20 horsepower, and that's just ticking us along at around about 2 knots. So out the back here we've got 3 rods. On this rod we've got a planer. Now the planer is a little device that actually keeps the lure down quite low, and depending on how much line you let out depends on how low that goes in the water. So this one's set out quite a long way, and my best guess is that it's between 10 and 15 feet deep. And on that I've got a fake trout. It's just like a little rubber trout, and that's what is supposed to be attracting on that one. And it could pick up a little jack pike, could pick up a Ferox trout. That's what we're planning on this rod over here. We've got a similar setup on this rod, the orange reel here. On there we've got an Abu Toby, and that's also connected to the same style of planer. The planers also have the ability to track slightly away from the boat, so we're keeping these 2 lines away from each other. Now this contraption here is what we call a downrigger. Now on this line we've got a large weight that's dropped down. We're going down here about 30 feet, and that actually holds then the lure. In fact, on this rod we've got a dead bait, and that's located and held onto the big weight, so the dead bait will be at 30 feet. We've measured that out from the rotations on the reel here. So each one rotation on this reel is 1 foot, so we know we've got 30 feet of line down. There'll be a little bit of swing in the weight, but we should be around about 30 feet down. when I was editing, I realised that I'd made a complete hash of trying to explain a downrigger. What with the boat bobbing around and me filming with one hand and pointing with the other, I think what I was saying made precious little sense to anyone that didn't understand a downrigger. So here we go with a bit of a diagram and actually see how this works out and if it makes any more sense. What's represented in red here is the actual downrigger, with a handle up the top here and a pivot here, a pulley, and the line goes down the pulley down to the actual weight at the bottom there. Each revolution of the handle here gives us either 1 foot or 30 centimeters of line that is actually let out or retrieved. The weight itself pulls this down, and that is determining where we fish. So if we let out 30 revolutions, we should get ourselves down here to either 30 feet or 10 meters, whichever scale you're working on. Now onto that we'll attach, in terms of the blue area here, the rod and the line. We attach the line to the bottom of the downrigger here with a sacrificial elastic band. So the line will actually come down here, go through a loop in the elastic band and off to the lure over here. This distance that we've drawn here can be maybe 5 meters, could be 15 feet. It actually just makes the lure further away from the boat, so it doesn't get affected, I suppose, by the noise of the engine, and you can vary that point. In the diagram you'll see that there's a bend on the rod here. Now the rod is bent because it's under pressure from the weight down here. Once a fish grabs the lure, which is what we're actually trying to achieve down here, the elastic band here at this point will either stretch or snap. That's why it's sacrificial. And when it does, it allows the rod tip to move up in this direction. So you actually know you've got a fish on because the rod springs up and you'll see it jiggling about. At that point, all you've got to do is play the fish and make sure you don't get it tangled up in the downrigger and stuff. That's where having your mate on board really helps, because they can deal with all the other things whilst you're trying to land the fish. So I hope that explains a little bit more about what the downrigger is and how it's set up. So we're both using the Abu Garcia reels. This is the 5501 SLG. It's got the line counter on it. When we're actually letting the line out, this display will be on with the digital countdown of what we've actually let out there, so we know how much line is out. So we've got that one there, and Douglas has set his up with the braid on it, and he'll have a piece of monofilament shock leader at the end of the line there. So we're also using some of these small joey mackerel, and I'll just show you how we rig those in a minute. I mentioned before about the bait holder. This is it actually sort of made up. So you can see the small mackerel head has just gone inside this holder. There's just a little bit of a gap there. You could get a slightly bigger bit of mackerel in, and in it has got a pair of little toothpicks. That runs down here to one of the trebles stuck in the side of the bait, and a final treble at the back there. And that whole thing is probably around about 6 inches, just a little bit bigger than my hand there. So yeah, about 6 inches long, and that holds the head in. Perfect job. Just needs to catch some fish now. It might be a little bit clearer, I don't know if that's going to focus, but that's the holder. So that's just a bit of a rundown of the kit we've got and what we're trying to do. And as I said before, put it in the comments if you think we're doing it all wrong, and we're both glad to have the tips of what we can do. So what do you reckon our chances are?
Always optimistic. So that's why we do what we do. Yeah, the wind's just a bit of a pain. We're punching into the wind at the moment, slowing the trawl down a little bit, sometimes dropping down to 1.2, 1.5 knots, and then obviously when we're downwind, sometimes being too fast, even with
About 3 knots.
even with the motor just ticking along. So yeah, it was a bit of playing about, and because we've not done it before, you know, we're playing about on the deck, playing about with the lures, different lures, seeing what works. Yeah, it's the only way we're going to learn this when we actually try it. So yeah, it's a good experience. Always hopeful.
So I seem to have a knack of picking the days when the weather is great the day before, and then the day we get there it really changes. And today we've got about 18 mile an hour wind, and as you can see it's coming right down the loch straight at us. It's difficult to get any kind of shelter from the wind, so we're just going to have to work with it. So also on board today is the ship's dog Dee. We don't usually do too much fishing without Dee. She's wearing her bandana and she's got her sea legs. Mine, she likes to sit on my knee. So she's out with us today. She's in charge of ducky fillets. She's been eating those as we've been going along, and we're just trying to keep her off the dead bait. Ferox trout is essentially an old large trout that has developed an appetite for smaller brown trout and Arctic char, and that's what we're after. I'm not sure if you'll be able to make that out, but this little island here is actually man-made. It's one of those Scottish crannogs. So there would have been a walkway out to that underneath the water somewhere for the defensive purposes originally. So hopefully that shows up on the camera. I think it's probably quite difficult, but a little crannog. Right up on the mountainside, there's the top dam for the hydro system. So they pump water up to the top where you can see the dam, let it down on the hydro, back into the loch here. The actual access road to it, you can just see is like a scar running down the side of the hill there. So we've just been checking the baits, make sure that they're okay, resetting things, Might try things a little bit deeper or maybe a bit shallower just to see what's happening. We've come down to, I suppose, more like the middle of the loch. The waves seem to be a bit less, we seem to be a bit less exposed here. The sun's come out, which really improves things a bit. It was getting a little bit cold with the following wind. So yeah, it's about 3 o'clock. Still working at it. We'll keep at it. See if we can be able to get a fish out of this one. So we're heading back up the loch on our last trawl. The weather's not got any better. It's still quite lumpy, as you can probably hear. The rod tips have not gone round. So unless something dramatic happens between now and getting back to the pontoon, I think we'll have to call this one a day. But I'm going to show this video because I think it's part and parcel of fishing for ferox. They're not like fishing for mackerel, they don't just happen. It's quite hard work. So we're serving our apprenticeship, we're putting in the hours, so you'll be seeing more of us doing this kind of thing. Yes, we are mad, totally satisfied, but we're going to try and pick better weather next time. So that's not a skill I've got, so I'm going to leave it to Douglas.
I'll pick it.
He's going to pick it next. Okay, right, so it's bye from me and a tail wag from D.
Bye from me, and I'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
So that's the boat back on the trailer after our attempt to get some ferox. So I arrived in great weather, and I've just put the boat back on the trailer, and the sun's out, the wind's died down a bit, but I'm going home and it's not the day for me to fish. Would have been great. It just goes to show how changeable the weather is. Best laid plans and all that. Tight lines from me and a tail wag from D. See ya.